He said he put the nail there on purpose. I heard the hiss before I saw the tire. I was on a back road somewhere between nowhere and nowhere else, trying to make good time after missing my exit off the interstate. It was one of those two-lane roads where cell signal flickers like a candle in the wind, and the trees press in too close on both sides, like they're watching. At first I thought it might be the engine acting up, but then the car pulled hard to the right, and I knew I'd blown a tire. I eased over to the gravel shoulder, heart already sinking. It was dusk. The sky had that heavy blue tint it gets just before full dark. No street lights, no signs, no cars for miles. Just me, the hum of cicadas, and a bad feeling crawling up the back of my neck. I got out, walked around the car, and there it was. Back, passenger side, totally flat. When I crouched down, I saw the nail embedded cleanly in the rubber. Fresh, not rusted. Too clean, honestly. I didn't think much of it at the time. The spare was under the trunk mat, but I'd never actually changed a tire before. I figured I could manage it, but my hands were already trembling a little, more from the isolation than the work ahead. That's when I heard gravel crunching. A man was walking toward me from up the road. I hadn't seen any cars pass by, hadn't heard an engine. Just this man, stepping out of the woods like he'd been waiting. He was tall, middle-aged maybe, wearing jeans, a long coat, even though it was still warm out, and a ball cap pulled low over his face. I backed up a little on instinct. "You alright?" he asked. Voice smooth, even friendly. "Flat tire." I nodded, keeping the car between us. "Yeah, just happened." He smiled, and I swear it didn't reach his eyes. "Lucky for you, I've patched more tires than I can count." One a hand. Something in me wanted to say no. Everything about the guy was giving me the wrong kind of vibe, but I didn't want to look paranoid or rude, and the truth was, I did need help. So I hesitated, then said, "Sure, thanks." He came around the car slow, like he didn't want to startle me. Then he crouched, inspected the tire, and gave a low whistle. "Yup," he said, tapping the rubber. That now went in real clean. I watched him closely, arms crossed. "You know," he added, not looking up, "I'd put that nail there." I thought I'd misheard. Where he stood, dusting off his hands. "I put it there, just down the road, last week. I like to see who stops." My throat dried out. I tried to laugh, like he was joking. Seriously, he looked at me, really looked. "Do you believe in fate?" I started backing away. He pulled the knife before I could even turn. Small, sharp, efficient. Not a hunting knife, not a showy blade. Just something practical. Something used. "I don't rob," he said. "I don't hurt everyone. Only the ones who panic." I turned and ran, not down the road, into the trees. I figured if he'd come from the road, he knew it too well. My only chance was to get lost in the woods and hope he didn't follow. But he did. I could hear him behind me, not crashing through like a madman, but walking. Slow, steady, like he knew I'd wear out first. Twigs snapped under my boots, sweat poured into my eyes. The forest was black now, lit only by the faint glow of a moon half hidden behind clouds. I kept moving until I couldn't hear him anymore. Then I hid. I crouched behind a fallen log, trying to slow my breathing. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. Every rustle made me flinch. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. And then, silence. No footsteps, no breathing. Just me and the dark. Eventually, I made my way back toward the road. The car was still there, door open, trunk still up, but he was gone, completely. Except for the nail. It was gone from the tire. Instead, it sat on the driver's seat. Clean, gleaming, like a gift, or a reminder. I never called the cops. I don't know what I would have told them. A guy with a knife and a philosophical question tried to chase me through the woods. I got in the car, spare installed somehow, and drove to the nearest lit gas station without stopping once. To this day, I never take back roads alone, because some people fix your tire, and some people plan for it to blow. The spare was already slashed. The tire blew out so violently, I thought I hit something. It was like the sound of a gun going off under my feet, followed by that awful grinding pull to the right as the rim kissed pavement. I gripped the wheel, heart pounding, and coasted the car onto a narrow gravel shoulder surrounded by thick trees and complete silence. No houses, no lights, just a stretch of road in the middle of absolute nowhere. I was somewhere in northern Pennsylvania, cutting through the back roads on my way to a cabin I'd rented for the weekend. I had bars of signal 1 second, then nothing. And now, Apparently, no tire. I stepped out of the car and into the stillness. It was colder than it should have been for late September. The air was damp and heavy, like it had just rained, but the ground was dry. Even the bugs were quiet. I walked around to the passenger side, crouched, and let out a low groan. The tire was toast, shredded like someone had taken a knife to it. I popped the trunk, dug under the mat for the spare, and then froze. The spare was already slashed, not just flat. A long, deep gash across the tread, deliberate and clean, like someone wanted it to be unusable. And then I saw the note. It was a small, folded scrap of yellowed paper wedged between the rim and the tire. Faded pencil marks scratched across it in shaky handwriting. "Don't try to leave this road." My stomach dropped. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank, maybe a creepy leftover from a previous owner. I'd bought the car used a few months ago, but the handwriting looked recent. The edges of the paper were dry, not weathered. It had been placed there recently. That's when the air shifted. I don't know how else to describe it. 1 second, everything felt still. The next, it felt like something was watching me, not from the road, from the woods. I turned around slowly. The trees were dense, dark, knotted together, like they were holding something in. My breath caught as I scanned the branches and underbrush, expecting to see, I don't know what. But there was nothing, just the creeping certainty that I was no longer alone. I got back in the car and locked the doors. Tried my phone, still no signal. I've considered walking, but I hadn't seen another car or sign of life for at least 20 minutes before the tire blew. Instead, I sat there. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, watching the trees, half expecting something or someone to step out. But the forest stayed still. Too still. No wind, no rustling, no crickets. That's when I heard the tap like delicate fingertip against glass. I froze. It came again. Tap, tap, from the back window. I turned around so fast I nearly cracked my neck, but no one was there. I slowly reached for the door, heart thundering, and stepped out, keeping the car between me and the woods. I walked to the rear of the vehicle. On the dusty back window was a single handprint, not mine. It was small, child-sized, smudged like whoever, or whatever, left it had oily skin, or something worse. I backed up fast, got in the car, and started the engine, even though I knew the car wasn't going anywhere. I just needed noise. Something to break the suffocating silence. That's when the radio turned on by itself. Static, not white noise. This was sharp, grating, like something was scraping across a microphone. Then a voice, faint, garbled, but definitely a voice. "Still here." I slammed my fist on the power button. Nothing. The volume went up. "Instead, you read the note." My blood went cold. I yanked the keys out of the ignition. The engine stopped, but the radio kept playing. "Don't leave the road." I opened the door and ran. Didn't grab my bag, didn't care. I ran up the road with only the moonlight and my pounding heart to guide me. I didn't hear footsteps behind me, but I felt them. Heavy, close. I kept running until I saw headlights in the distance. A pair of them, heading my way. I flailed my arms like a lunatic, nearly sobbing with relief. The car slowed, a pickup rusty old. The driver leaned out the window. He was in his 60s, worn face, flannel shirt, eyes like he'd seen something he'd never forgotten. He asked. I didn't answer, just stood there, trembling. He sighed. "Thought so." "Tire blowout." I nodded slowly. He leaned back in and unlocked the passenger door. "Get in," he said. "You can't stay out here." I hesitated. "What's happening?" He shook his head. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Just keep your eyes forward, and whatever you do, don't look back." I got in. As we pulled away, I made the mistake of glancing in the side mirror. There was something standing next to my car. Not a person, just a shape, watching and smiling. The second voice behind me, it wasn't the flat tire that scared me. It wasn't the man who stopped to help. It was the second voice, soft, close, and coming from the trees. I was about an hour outside of town, on a cracked 2-lane road that cut through a stretch of woods that always felt wrong. I'd driven it before, usually with a podcast or music loud enough to drown out the silence. But that night, my phone had died, and the radio was static. No signal. Just me, the dark, and the feeling that something was off long before I heard the pop. I felt the car drag a little before I heard the noise. That heavy, rubbery thump 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 of a blown tire. I pulled over immediately, trying to keep calm. It was just a flat, nothing scary about that. I had a spare, I knew how to change it. But stepping out of the car into the dead stillness of those woods made my stomach tighten. There were no other cars, no wind, just the faint crackle of my cooling engine and the hollow click of the hazard lights. I popped the trunk and pulled out the spare, cursing under my breath. The forest pressed in on either side like it was listening. That's when I heard the crunch of gravel. I whipped around, heart leaping, but it was just a truck. An older model, white paint faded to gray, a dent in the passenger door. It pulled up behind my car, headlights washing over me in a blinding flood. A man stepped out. He looked normal, maybe late 40s, flannel shirt, jeans, short cropped hair, kind of a dad vibe. He raised a hand, gave me a friendly nod. He asked. I hesitated. My instincts screamed something I couldn't quite explain. But I was stranded. It was late. He looked harmless enough. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Thanks, just a flat. He knelt beside the tire without another word, like he'd done it 100 times before. His movements were smooth, practiced. I offered to help, but he just waved me off politely. I stood off to the side, hands in my pockets, trying to stay calm. But then I saw him freeze. He didn't look up, didn't speak for a second. Then he whispered, "Now." I thought he was talking to me at first, until I heard a second voice, somewhere behind me in the trees. A quiet, rasping, "Okay?" I turned so fast I nearly slipped in the gravel. There was nothing there, nothing I could see, but the hair on my neck rose like static. There had been a voice, no question. I looked back at the man. He was still crouched, still facing the car, but he wasn't moving. His head was slightly tilted, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. I took a step back. "You hear that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't respond, just kept staring at the tire. Then, slowly, he stood, but he didn't turn around. "Hey," I said, louder this time. "Did you?" He raised a hand, palm out, silencing me without looking. And in that moment I realized he was stalling. I stepped away from the car. He turned finally, smiling, but the smile was wrong. Tight, performed. "Looks like you're good to go," he said softly. The tire wasn't even on yet. My breath caught. Something rustled behind me again. Closer this time. I didn't think. I just moved. I ran around the front of my car and jumped into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut. The man didn't try to stop me. He just stood there in the headlights, still smiling. Behind him, just at the edge of the tree line, I saw movement. A shape, thin, pale, something that ducked low the moment my eyes found it. I fumbled the keys into the ignition, praying the car would start on a shredded tire. It did. I threw it into drive and hit the gas. The car bucked and groaned, the rim grinding, sparks shooting from under the chassis, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back until I hit the next town. When I finally stopped, I checked the trunk. The jack had been taken, the spare was gone, but stuffed inside the wheel well, tucked in so neatly, I almost missed it, was a piece of paper, folded once. No blood, no mess. Just 3 words, scrawled in pencil. "See you soon." I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't run. I don't want to know, but I'll never forget that second voice. Too close, too calm, and the way the man didn't even flinch when he heard it.
My car was parked in front of a missing persons poster. Of me, the first thing I noticed was that the paper looked new. Crisp edges, no water damage. Just a single sheet stapled cleanly to the wooden pole, like it had been put there minutes ago. And it had my face on it. It started about an hour before that, when I blew a tire in the middle of nowhere. I was taking a shortcut through some back roads in upstate New York, hoping to save time on the drive to my sister's place. My GPS was bouncing in and out, the signal flickering like a dying bulb, but I figured I'd be fine. The road was empty, surrounded by nothing but trees and rolling hills, and I hadn't seen another car in what felt like 20 minutes. Then I hit the pothole. Hard. The front right tire gave out with a sharp pop and a jarring tug to the right. I managed to pull onto a gravel shoulder and sighed, already dreading the hassle. It was one of those cool gray fall afternoons where everything feels half asleep, the kind of weather that makes you feel like you've been gone longer than you have. I killed the engine and stepped out, stretching my arms before walking around to inspect the damage. Sure enough, the tire was toast, flattened and split down the sidewall. I opened the trunk and started fumbling with the jack and spare when something across the road caught my eye. A telephone pole, and on it, a piece of paper. I walked over, casually at first, more curious than anything. But the closer I got, the more I felt off, like a pit opening slowly in my stomach. The wind picked up a little, sending dry leaves scratching along the asphalt. I stopped in front of the poster. It was a missing person notice, black and white. Standard layout, but it was me, my face, my name. And the date printed at the bottom was today's. Missing. Daniel M. last seen, October 12th, 2023 age, 29 height, 5 leven, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. I was wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. I looked around, heart now pounding in my chest. There was no sign of anyone, no camera, no sound, no explanation, just the rustling of trees and that low, cold wind that suddenly felt more like a warning than weather. I tore the poster off the pole and backed away, eyes scanning the empty road. I don't know what I expected. Maybe hidden cameras? A prank, but it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate, meant for me only. I walked back to the car faster than I meant to. Got in, locked the doors, sat for a second, gripping the wheel, just breathing. The paper was still in my hand. I turned it over. There was writing on the back, scrawled in red ink I hadn't noticed before. You're not supposed to be here yet. I dropped it like it burned me, started the car, put it in drive. No more tire change. I'd deal with the flat, just needed to move. Get anywhere else. I didn't care if I shredded the rim. But when I hit the gas, the car didn't move. No sound, no resistance. Just nothing. I looked down. The gear was already in park. I hadn't touched it. Hands shaking, I put it back in drive. The dashboard flickered. Then the engine shut off completely. Silence. I turned the key again. Nothing, not even a click. I was alone, stuck, surrounded by trees, holding a flyer declaring I'd already disappeared. And then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, behind the car. I turned in my seat, straining to see through the foggy rear window. Nothing. I cracked the window just enough to hear. Dead leaves crunching. One step at a time, then it stopped. Closer now. I whispered, "Hello?" But even my voice sounded foreign. No answer. I opened the door, adrenaline spiking, ready to confront whoever was screwing with me. But there was no one. No footsteps. No shadows. Just another piece of paper taped to the back window of the car. I hadn't heard it being placed. It read, "Now you are." That was it. No explanation. No logic. Just a creeping dread I haven't been able to shake since. Eventually, the car started again. The tire, somehow, not flat. The missing person poster gone. Pole bare. But I know what I saw. And I don't use back roads anymore. I don't ignore bad feelings. Because whatever that place was, it was waiting for me. And maybe it still is.